How are you, mate?
I'm good. It's good to speak to you. And are you which team you support? Are you a Villa man?
No, I'm going to let you decide who I support because I do get that daily. And welcome all to a chapter of my life with author Roy Cavanagh. It's all about you. It's not about me. I want to know who the real Roy Cavanagh is and how you got the MBE. So before we get into the podcast where we're going to talk about your books, let's talk about previous titles that you've done and how you've got into or how you got into the after dinner speaking circuit.
Okay. Well, firstly, my actual name is Roy Cavanagh.
Got ya.
Cavanagh with a C. Cavanagh.
Yeah.
And until I was about 35, I considered myself a very, very shy person. Seriously, very shy person. I even got married in a registrar office because I couldn't fancy the whole church thing and everything like that. Seriously, I was very shy. Anyhow, I've always been interested in writing, but I had a very average education because when I was at school, I mean, I'm 74 next month. So consequently, when I was at school, I lived very close to Old Trafford, and I lived very close to what is now Media City in Salford.
Yes.
But then it was the docks. It was the Salford docks, and all the houses that were around were really slums. But you didn't know they were slums because nobody else. You hadn't been anywhere else. You hadn't been to Barbados or even Scarborough. So I mean, everything was normal. People left the houses open at night, the doors open, so you didn't have out to steal.
Yeah.
And all that. But I saw the Busby Babes from the age of 7. And that was before they'd won their first league championship. So I saw them, all the way through their time. I was at Old Trafford, their last home game. The game at Arsenal, where they won 5-4 on the 1st of February 1958, has gone down as one of the iconic Manchester United games, because that was the last game they played in England before the air crash. Now, but the Saturday before that, they'd played in the FA Cup against Ipswich Town at Old Trafford. And I went to that game, and that was the last game that team played at Old Trafford. And they beat Ipswich Town, who were then in the 3rd division, managed by Alf Ramsey, and they beat them 2-0, and Bobby Charlton got both the goals. And I can remember being pushed by my dad onto the front behind the picket where you got a little wall, and there was snow, which was quite evocative about what would happen 10 days after that. Snow pushed to the side of the pitch on that day. The Saturday after, which is the 1st of February, when United were playing the Wolves, were playing Arsenal away in that famous game, the reserves played the Wolves at Old Trafford. And I went to that game, and there was 19,000 at that match. 19,000 for a reserve match. And Ronnie Flowers played and scored for Wolves in their reserve team that day. But United, just before Christmas, had a bit of a dodgy spell, and Matt brought Harry Gregg into the club. So he replaced Ray Wood, who was my hero. And he was my hero because when you first went in the mid-50s, life outside football was very dull, very grey. There was no colour. You didn't see women walking around in green dresses and red dresses. Men were in overcoats and trilbies and having a fight. It was a very greyish society. That's what I saw. So to see a football shirt, whether it was the tangerine of Blackpool, the blue and white stripes of West Brom, the Villa, very famous, the claret and blue, the old gold of the Wolves. In case you're a Birmingham fan, I'll throw in the royal blue of Birmingham as well.
Thank you, sir.
All that type, the colours. But the goalkeeper, of course, had a different colour than the others. So Ray Wood became my hero because he had green jersey on. But the United reserve side on the 1st of February was Ray Wood was in goal. Jeff, and he got hurt in the crash. Jeff Bent was at left back, and he got killed in the crash. Jackie Blanchflower was at centre half. Danny Blanchflower's brother and a great player. He'd been dropped before Christmas. He got so badly hurt he never played again. Johnny Berry, the outside right, who they'd signed from Birmingham 5 or 6 years earlier, a great right winger. He was so severely hurt, he never played again. Billy Whelan, the inside right, got killed. And David Pegg, the outside left, got killed. And that was a reserve side facing Wolves reserves. So, I was a big fan of United. And my school was, if I was asked maths and English, which I wasn't too bad at, but really all I could do was remember Wood, Folkesburn, Coleman, Jones, Edwards, Berry Whelan, Taylor, Violin, Peg. That was the Buzzy Boys. And then on the 6th of February, the Thursday, I'd been asked to stay behind to do some extra maths and English for the 11 plus that I was due to take in the May or June, which I failed, by the way. And I was coming home with my school bag over my shoulder, sludging away, met my mates on the corner of the street about 4:30 English time. Yeah. This is important. And, the crash was on the billboards. And I've only really found out recently that, it's not celebrated is the wrong word. It's acknowledged and commemorated about 6 minutes past 3. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the actual crash in Belgrade, because they would be an hour in front of us, I would think. So if it was 3 there, it'd be 2 in England when you'd heard about it. So there's a bit of a play on words that I need to find out even more about. But certainly by 4:30 in England, you knew there'd been an air crash. And then overnight, don't forget, there was no Sky TV, there was no Talk Sport. The 6 o'clock news, I can remember Kenneth Kendall coming on and saying Manchester United had been in the air crash and some people had definitely died. The following day, when I found out that they crashed, because the headmaster told us all at assembly, and on my way home for dinner, because I only lived 5-7 minutes away from school, and I used to go home for my dinner, and I took all the books out of my school drawer, and I passed Eddie Coleman's house, which I did every day.
Blimey.
And Eddie Coleman lived number 9 Archer Street, which is less than a mile from where the Salford docks are now. Yeah. It's got the Media City is now. And in that street, Archer Street, when Coronation Street started in 1960, they showed an actual black and white picture of a living street in Salford. And the street they used was Archer Street. And that's where Eddie Coleman lived, in that street. And I can remember knocking on the door and somebody opened it. And I just passed over all my souvenirs and went home. I can remember my mother giving me a right volley for that. You shouldn't have done that. But I was 10.
Yeah.
So from that, as I say, I left school at 15. And, had deja vu jobs, okay, nice money, Monday to Friday. But I enjoyed writing. And I started sending letters to, like, the Football Pink, win a tenner for a letter and things like that. And I also used to have a massive programme collection. I had every single United programme since the war, except 4, and every England-owned programme since the war, except 4. So I started writing about, and a friend of mine became the assistant secretary at United, Ken Ramsden. And I said, if you ever want, I can do you an article on United programme. So if they were playing Villa, Birmingham or Real Madrid, I could write about past games that they'd played them. Are you with me? From the 30s and 40s and 50s. If it was Birmingham, you could pick the semi-final, whatever. Birmingham, I remember beating United in the 6th round of the Cup when I think Johnny Berry played for them, about 52. So, and he said, oh, great. And the first article went in with coloured picture in the Tottenham Cup replay in January 1980. So from then, he gave me a 2-page article in the 100th Manchester derby. And the year after, I was writing for 6 years, I wrote in a lot of Club United programmes about collecting programmes. So from then, I did a book called the Reds Reviewed for United, which covered United 46 to 58, but with stories out of the club programme.
Yep.
So, basically they were official stories from the programme. And I was going to do, that was going to be the first of four, 46, 58, 58 to 68 when it European Cup, 68 to perhaps 80, and then 80 onwards. And I've only completed that first year. I have longhand, so it shows how long I did it. I have longhand written the second one, but I've never bothered doing that. And then from that, I did a book with a local, quite a famous guy called Fred Eyre. Am I okay, by the way, talking like this from your point of
You
view?
are absolutely fantastic. I love to just listen to people
Okay.
talk about their love and passion for their
Yeah.
club.
Yeah, well, you just stop me.
No, I will just let you carry on. I'm
Okay.
loving it.
Well, Fred Eyre used to play for City, for the reserves and whatever. And then he finished up playing for about 26 non-league clubs. But Fred became a brilliant after-dinner speaker. And he's still around. He does local radio. He must be towards 80 now, 78, something like that. And he covers City on local radio. And we got together and combined. He'd already done one famous book, and I'd done this one. And we did a book called, in fact, I'm looking at the cover, which is in a bestseller silver frame in front of me in the studio I'm in now. And it was like you do with records. And it was called What a Game.
Yeah.
And this was 11 personalities of Manchester United and 11 personalities of City. And I'm not being disrespectful to City then. Their personalities were Bernard Manning, Stuart Hall, whatever. Mike Summerby was like a great buzzer. He's a great bloke buzzer. But United, I had Georgie Best, I had Matt Busby, I had Harold Riley, the artist who was my school art teacher. I had Bob Wilson. I had, because he nearly signed for United.
Right.
I had Peter Ellis, the golfer, who'd followed United, having seen them play Bournemouth in 1957 in the Cup. I had John Motson, who was born in hospital in Salford, Hope Hospital. So, I had all these people, and I interviewed them and then did a bio of them, and they picked their best United game. It didn't have to be, it wasn't against City, it was their favourite United game.
Yep.
And Fred did the same. And we got somebody to do a caricature of all 22 people in it. I can see it from here now. Georgie Best has got a blonde chasing him, and all of them are on it. And this, can you imagine it as a scaped out painting, drawing rather, coloured, and that became the front and back of the book. And it's called What a Game. And Fred had lots and lots of contacts, and we got it autographed by every single person on there. Some very, very famous names.
Yeah.
One other, and I'll come to that in a minute. When the book got launched, it got launched at an hotel called the Lord Daresbury in Warrington. Beautiful hotel. And it's a dicky bow job. 300 tickets sold. And United players at a table, City players at a table, Liverpool players at a table, and Everton players. And that was 1983.
Yeah.
And it got launched on about the 3rd or 4th of December for the Christmas market. We'd already sold 7,000 copies of the 10,000 print on the night, and it became a bestseller. And we had Paddy Barclay, a young Paddy Barclay in the audience. This is 1983. All the press people. Bob the Cat Bevan was the after-dinner speaker, along with Jack Charlton. And we were clapped in on the top table. And in front of me, I swear this is gospel truth, in front of me was Jack Charlton. Behind me was John Charles. And in front of me are these tables. Now, I lost my shyness that night. Can you imagine why? Because you have to speak, you have to say whatever. And then from there, that's where I got involved in the after-dinner speaking, really.
Wow. What a lead up to the after dinner speaking. What was your it's unfair to say what was your favourite, what was your most memorable, because when you go on the circuit like that, there are so many stars that you've been and let's be honest, in awe of, because we all
Yeah,
are football fans at heart. But
yeah,
what were, say, half a dozen of the most memorable ones? I mean, I looked at your text. There was the likes of
yeah,
Jimmy Greaves there, Frank Worthington, Steve
yeah,
Walsh and a Millionaire,
yeah,
Wilf McGuinness, Nobby
yeah.
Stiles, Alex Stepney. Did Stepney tell the story about Stan Bowles and the penalty?
He did. He did. But he told a better one.
Go on.
He told Alex, a lovely man. Alex Stepney, lovely, lovely man.
Come from
Yeah,
Millwall, didn't he?
yeah. Now that's the story. What a man.
Yeah.
He played at Millwall, and then he got transferred to Chelsea. I'll tell you a story about
Yeah.
that as well. And then he come to United. But at
Mm.
Millwall, he got into the first team, and he had a habit, Alex. If the right winger crossed the ball, he would catch it and throw it out to. So yeah, throw it out to his right winger. And if the left winger crossed the ball, he would catch it and roll it out throw it out to his left winger. Start attack.
Yeah.
Anyhow, gets to half time and they had a centre forward. I know his first name was Pat. I forget his second name, but this guy, black haired, brushed back as they would be then in the early 60s, 63, something like that, 64. Good looking guy. And he said, "Oh, he said, when you get that ball, don't bowl it out to Joe Abberty on the wing, you belt it down the middle to me." And I thought, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. It's going to upset my routine." So the ball's come in and everything, and it's setting up. Yeah, they've won the game. So he's gone in the clubhouse after, and he's just having a drink. Door opens, and the centre forward walks in with two blokes, and it was the Cray twins. He said, "I tell you what, Roy," he said, I booted it down the middle after that every game." I mean, it's a cracking story, that, isn't it, Alex?
It's one that would rarely be bettered, when this is why you're going to do what I'm telling you to do, Alex.
Yeah,
My pals are going to back me up.
yeah.
But yeah, he did. He went to Chelsea briefly,
Well,
and then transferred to United, didn't he? Oddy was telling me about it.
well, here's the story with that. The Chelsea chairman at the time was a guy called Mears.
Yeah.
And Mears told Tommy Docherty, who was the manager, he wasn't that sure that he wanted a change to Peter Bonetti.
Mm.
And he said, "I want you to buy another goalie." So he said, "Well, I've got Peter Bonetti." He said, "No, I want you to." So they signed Alec for, say, 50 grand from Millwall. And Alec joined. In between Alec joining and the start of the season, Mr. Mears dropped dead.
Right.
Or died. And Tommy Docherty then had two goalkeepers. And he rang Matt up and said, "Look, you can have your choice if you want." He said, "Well, I need a goalie," because Harry, what a top man he is, Harry Gregg, was suffering too many injuries. Pat Dunn, who helped him win the league, only had one season in 65, and Dave Gaskell kept picking injuries. He needed a top goalie because he had a magnificent team.
Yeah.
In many ways, that 66 team, when George got them goals in Benfica, when they beat Benfica 5-1, that was a better team than won the European Cup in 68.
Yeah.
Because they had, so he said, "Well, I'll take Alex Stepney off you." And the doc made 5 grand on it because Alex came to United for 55,000, and of course they won the league title in that first season. But yeah, I've got a lot of time for Alex Stepney, top bloke.
Duncan McKenzie is another one that has a great reputation for doing the circuit. Do you still do the circuit now, Roy, or is it something that you've finished? You've wrote your book and you've written down your memoirs of some fantastic evenings.
Yeah, if a mate said to me, "Can you do us a favour? We're doing a dinner," I'd do it, and I'd get. I don't. You must be the same, Paul. I mean, you get a buzz, but you also get hyped up beforehand. You think, "Oh, I don't need to do it." Then you get in the room. There's 200, 300, 400, 500 people at times in rooms, and I knew my place. My place was the MC. The comedian, the speaker was there to entertain, the comedian was there to entertain. My point of view was to get the evening underway by 8 at the latest. And to get it over by midnight at the latest. Not having your guest speaker coming on at 11:15 and a comedian to follow when, because you've got the raffle. So if I say so myself, I try to get everything organised and do it that way. One of the top guys is, without a doubt, is Jimmy Green.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy, I've been with Jimmy 3 or 4 times, and what a lovely man. And one of the first ones, bizarrely, not bizarrely, because he was turned out to be a mate, but a mate lived up in Darlington, and I used to get loads of dinners up in Darlington. I used to go up there a lot. And there was 400 there, and it was a circus tent on a cricket field. But it was a bloody windy night, and we're in this tent, and Greeley saying, and I won't be swearing, but
No, you can.
no, not basically. He used the Cockneys use the F word quite a bit. Effing hell, Cab, look at it, effing wind here and everything. And of course, he was then just on Diet Coke. He wasn't touching a drink, and he would drive home from Darlington to, I think he lived down South Enway, something like that. But luckily, it was right down the A1. Are you with me? Ish. But he would, but he didn't never touch a drop. But he was fantastic. Two cracking stories with Jimmy. There's many, but 3 really. But one of them was an actual event at Leicester City, but it was a place near Leicester, and it was a charity dinner, testimonial dinner for Alan Birchinall.
Another legend, yeah, Birch.
Yeah, himself, and he had this testimonial dinner, and just off the M1. So I've gone down. It was a black tie do. It was Thursday night, about 300 there, and Greasy's got in, and he's got a white shirt with mud still on it, number 8 on the back, and he says, "Can I use the words here? I don't like swearing."
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah. So he goes up and says, "Fucking hell, Birch." He said, "Here, put this in a fucking drawer, make yourself a baba too, whatever." And he threw this shirt. The Birch give it to me then, because I'm going to auction it. So the night's gone great. Jimmy's been brilliant. Comedian was quite good. And we come to the auction then. So I've got this shirt of Jimmy Greaves. And to my left is a table of Leicester City players. I can see him now. Muzzy is Neil Lennon, Savage, about 5 of them.
Yeah.
But there's a party of about 10. And right at the back of the room, in another table, was the captain, Steve Walsh, the centre half.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the night the auction's going on, and I've started off. Come on, Jimmy Greaves, here's the shirt. Come on, guys, make some money for Bert. 50 quid, 80 quid, 100 quid, 100. And it's starting to get, and Muzzy it's gone to 300 quid, 400. And Greaves said, "Fucking hell, Muzzy, come on, keep going. Let's make Bert some money." So, and there's someone at the back bidding whatever, but I couldn't hardly see the one at the back. It's 250 people in the room and whatever. Anyhow, this has got to 1,250 quid. Right, last time, Muzzy? No, I'm out. Right, last time, 1,250 quid. Okay, so this guy's winning. Next minute, I've moved on to the next auction, you remember? It's because someone else has to go and get Joe Bloggs' name, whatever.
Yeah.
Next minute, uproar. The table at the back literally went up in the air. Punches are being traded. One of them is Steve Walsh, who's in the middle. And to my left is the Leicester City team, as I've said to you, who, this is Thursday night, who were on Saturday or Sunday were playing Chelsea in the FA Cup on the television. And next minute, what had happened was that Steve Walsh was a guest of a Leicester City fan, an ordinary Joe, just like us, who'd happened to win on the lottery.
Yeah.
£1 million. Over £1 million. He won 9 million quid. He won 9 million quid. And this guy, big love with Leicester City. And he was spending it, and Steve Walsh was his guest. And someone on a closed table had called him a flash so-and-so, for spending the money and everything.
Yeah.
And then, now either Steve was trying to be a pleasemaker, I don't know. But I always remember I came out at the end, and as I came out, there was about 6 police outside. And I said, "Oh, go on, you've got to breathalyze me because I've only just had orange juice all night because I've been working in there." And he laughed and he said, "You can bugger off, get out of the way." And I jumped to my car and went home. And I always wondered what happened then because Leicester, of course, were playing Chelsea on the Sunday, and Steve Walsh got sent off in the match. But Jimmy agrees, and he tells a cracking story. He went to Milan, of course.
Yep.
99,000, something like that, and came back to Tottenham, 100,000, whatever.
Yeah, it was 99,999 pence.
Yeah,
Bill Nick wouldn't go over
yeah,
for £100,000.
yeah. But it cost Milan a lot of money as well, and
Yeah.
he'd gone to AC Milan, and of course the Italians pre-season they go up. Well, every game they go up in the bloody hills and they take the players away Thursday, Friday up in the hills, and they're living like monks really. And Jimmy thinks, even know what have I let myself in for here? And he says one of his early training sessions, the coach was called, I get this right, I think it's called Neo Rocco, famous Italian coach. He said he had a big neck, thick set neck. And he said after one of the training sessions, he pulled the team together. He said, "You got the two centre halves." He said, "Good looking lads, two black-haired bushbats." He said, the coach suddenly said, "Hey, in a year or two, I fine you a 40,000 lira for having the sex before a match. And if it had been together, it would have been a 80,000 lira." And Jimmy thought, "Wait, what have I landed myself in for here?" And he got out of Italy quite quick. But so yeah, but I mean, if you want me to continue, I mean, I will Busby, Best, Nobby Styles, McGuinness, Johnny Giles, Alan Minter. I've got Dermot Reeve. You've got some. Those are real stories. If you want me to go through them, I'm delighted to. It's up to you. You're the boss.
You're absolutely welcome to. All of these stories are in your book, Speak for Your Dinner.
Yeah.
It's a lovely. Is that you on the back in your younger days with the Manchester United hat and scarf, and of course the standard rattle of the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, a brilliant artist who lives in Chorley called Phil Neal.
Not the footballer.
No. And, but I think he's double L actually. I think it's NEI double L.
Yep.
Phil Neal. Seriously, guys, any of you out there, just have a look at his caricatures and drawings. Some fantastic sets of any team. But he'll do a picture of you so if you're a golfer, for example, he'll do a caricature picture of you dressed up in your golf thing, knocking the ball in the 18th hole, or anything that you want, horse racing. He's done it two of me. He's done one of the European Cup in '68, and me holding it and with the blue strip on, big smile on my face and whatever. But he's a top guy. But that book, I self-published that, and I still think the read of it, if I say so myself, is one of the better ones, and I've done 30 odd now, purely because of the stories and the type of people who are in the book.
Yeah.
And as I say, I've done 30 odd books, but I mean, you can do one book of 30. I mean, that's one that really I love, and it depends. I mean, if people wanted it, I would get it reprinted. But you understand, it's one of them. I did it because I wanted to tell the stories and of the bios of the people and whatever. I mean, I'm just thinking there, Nobby Styles, what a lovely man. I mean, Nobby, he's got his false teeth in, he's got his reading glasses on and whatever, and Nobby tells a story of when he signed for United, Manchester lad, and he signed for United at 15. And he had to go and sign the forms with his dad and meet the legendary, another man from the West Midlands, by the way. Well, he was a Welshman, but played for West Brom, Jimmy Murphy.
Yep.
But great man, a man who saved United, literally.
It was it was also on the night of the sad, the most tragic incident in British football. Superguard had it in 1949, of course, on the 4th of May. But Jimmy was also the manager of Wales, wasn't he, at the time, as
Well,
trainer and reserve manager with Manchester United, and
yeah,
and that's why he wasn't there in Munich.
yes, he was. He was. They were playing Israel in a. He'd asked Matt. He'd implored Matt to go,
Yeah.
and he said, "No, no, no, it's your team. You've got to manage them for that."
Mm.
And poor Bert Wally, who was one of the assistant, he got in the plane and he sat where Jimmy sat, and he got killed.
Terrible.
He was one of the other ones, but Nobby. So you got to go down to Old Trafford from Collyhurst, which is only about 4 or 5 miles down Rochdale Road, Oldham Road, into Manchester. And his dad, Charlie Styles, he ran a funeral business.
Right.
He said, "Come on, son, I'll take you down." What he meant by taking him down was, Nobby said, I had to get in the front of one of the hearses, and my dad's taking me down to Old Trafford to sign me. He said, and of course we're doing like 25 miles down the road. No one's overtaking us. Turns into Warwick Road, and Jimmy Murphy's waiting on the forecourt, and Jimmy sees this hearse driving along. Wonder what the bloody hell, and there inside it is young Nobby Styles at 15 with his dad Charlie to sign the forms for Manchester United. But you know, I mean, you'd have to hear that from a person like Nobby to realise the real ethos of it, the story of it, wouldn't you?
And he also started his career when he was a kid as a centre half, didn't he?
Yeah, which is surprising
Yeah.
because unless he was that size when he was 15 or 14 and never grew any bigger.
Yeah.
But that was one of the links with Bob Wilson because they played in the same England boys team. Bob Wilson, goalie, and Bob Wilson was invited by Matt Busby to sign for United, but his father, I think, wanted him to carry on with his studies, and I'm not sure if he lived, maybe wrong here, whether Bob Wilson lived like Chesterfield or something like that. You know, in the end, he finished up going to play for the Arsenal. But another magnificent speaker is Wilf McGuinness, the former Busby Babe, and Wilf is I mean, he's an absolute star. He's a gentleman. But he told me once, even telling it to you now, I'm probably going to start laughing. But Wilf, you know, was the understudy to Duncan Edwards, which is not the greatest job in the world. But Wilf had been England captain, schoolboy captain, was a great wing half. And Edwards, of course, could play number 5, number 6, number 9, number 10. He could play anywhere. So if he moved around from number 6, Wilf got his games, you know, at number 6. And of course, Wilf missed the flight to Belgrade because he got a bad injury. So much so that when the game started after Munich, he would have just walked into the team at number 6. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But he was injured till the end of the season. But he came back the following season. He had a great season. He played so well. He got selected for England. He played twice for England. And his first game was against Ireland. And he said Tom Finney, who I have to say is one of my heroes, by the way. Tom Finney is the greatest non-United footballer I've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, he could play 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Tommy Docherty would say exactly the same.
A magnificent football,
Yeah.
and a top man. So Tommy Finney's took Wilf under his wing while he's training and playing the game. And as he's leaving, Wilf thinks, look, he's done so much for me. He says, Tom, I can't thank you enough for this, and obviously hope to be in your company much more. But is there anything I can do for you? So Tommy said, what are you doing on Monday? He said, why? He said, well, my labourer's off sick, and I've got a bath to fit. And I need another pair of hands. Can you? I'm just saying to you that Tommy Finney is the greatest footballer I know, other than my beloved United or whatever. And here he is. He's got his own plumbing business. He's just played for England on the Saturday, and he's fitting a bath on the Monday. I mean, it's hard to equate, I'm sure, for much younger people.
But it is because the young kids don't understand that, you know, these football players were legends, were like demigods, but also did a proper job as well. So, you know, He had some money from his when he got his D-Mob suit, didn't he? And he started the plumbing business with his brother in Preston. He also, while he was serving the country in the Second World War, Tom Finney was in Egypt driving a tank.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget the maximum wage was 20 quid.
Yeah,
And, which was better than the average working man, I appreciate. But it wasn't better than like today, if you said the average working man might be on 400-500 quid, whatever, and a footballer's on for 400,000, some of them,
yeah.
but certainly 100,000 a week. And that's what really makes it worse when you put it down as a week. I mean, two others, obviously. You can imagine what I told you originally. There's that little lad in Salford who just went over Trafford Bridge and watched United. But in later life, I met Sir Matt Busby a couple of times.
Yeah.
Officially, I met him. In fact, they invited me when they did that documentary on him last year, and I did a bit on that, a bit of background, and also spoke on it.
The Three Kings.
No, the other one is a documentary just on Busby.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a which came out as a film and a DVD, and that was a great honour and pleasure. But my late father, who had been a prisoner of war with the Japanese in Burma and suffered horrendously, he just would have not believed if I said to him I'd sat in Matt Busby's office for a good 40 minutes interviewing him for that book, What a Game, that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And it was just me and him, and I mean, it's unbelievable. And hey, Roy, you okay, son? You sit down, you want a coffee? And I mean, just talking to him, and he was fantastic. And then about 4-5 weeks after, coincidentally, we were both on Willie Morgan's testimonial committee.
Right.
And I was the only one that I'd never heard of. I mean, I know that's an old joke for a lot of people, but Willie had great friends in America. Howard Keel, the famous singer and artist, Johnny Mathis, well, you're talking world famous here, aren't you? And of course, Sir Matt Busby was on the committee. And one of the first committee meetings was at a hotel in Altrincham called the Cresta Court. So I went down, and by this time I was just starting to get, I'd gone past the launch of that book, and I was feeling a bit more relaxed. But, I'm walking into a room here where all the good and grand of Manchester are, and the committee members. And I'm just in the corner, really, but I'm thinking, do I go across to you and say, if I knew you, I would, but I didn't know anyone. I might have seen the faces before, but I didn't know them to talk to. Nowadays, you'd have the strength and personality to realise we're all the same, and you would say, hello, what's your name? You're so-and-so, I'm Pip Blogs or whatever. Anyhow, after about 10 minutes, the door opened, and Matt walked in with two other blokes. I swear this is true. And he walked past me, and he said, as he walked past me, he said, hey, Roy, are you okay? A good meeting the other week. And that summed up what everyone told me.
Yeah.
He never forgot a name. He never forgot a face. His attention to detail. And, you can see why all the great players in the time have absolutely adored playing under him and for him, because he must have had an iron rod as well. But if it was one of the players' wives' birthdays, or kids were in hospital, or someone was ill, he always made sure flowers or a card was there. So when the player got home, look, it's come from Mr. Busby, And I mean, that attention to detail does bring fantastic team spirit and will to win, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And when he got the job as Manchester United manager, Matt said, I don't want to build a team, I want to build a club, because previously he was at Manchester City and at Liverpool as well, and it was very close whether he was going to go to United or stay at Liverpool and take on a managerial role at Liverpool, because he was instrumental, I think, in Billy Liddell coming to Liverpool, and certainly Bob Paisley as well during his time there as a player at Liverpool Football Club.
Yeah, well, he was, because he played with Paisley.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Which Paisley, by the way, it's funny, I'm only talking about him today because I am also, I'm proud to be an ambassador of Bishop Auckland Football Club.
Yeah.
And Bishop Auckland, when United had the air crash, bear this in mind, I just mentioned to you before, I went to the reserve game on the 1st of February against the Wolves.
Yep.
And the first team were playing the Arsenal at Highbury. So there was 11 players at Highbury and 11 players in Manchester, 22 players. After the crash, of them 22 players, 8 were killed,
Yeah.
2 would never play football again, and 5 were still in hospital in Munich. So Manchester United, the week after the crash, had 7 players who around them. Now, luckily, the likes of Ian Greaves was coming back from injury. They fast-tracked Nobby Stiles and Johnny Giles from the A team into the reserves. Because don't forget, they had to put out a first team and a second team.
Yeah.
So they needed 22 players. And if they hadn't put them players out, them teams out, rest assured, Alan Hardacre and the Football League, who'd ordered Busby not to go in the European Cup in the first place.
Yeah, they didn't like it, did they? Yeah.
They would have come down on United like a ton of bricks, seriously. In fact, when they first turned them down, Matt Busby was a big friend of Sir Stanley Rouse, and that historically went back a long time. In 1948, Matt Busby was the manager of the Great Britain Olympic team, played in the London Olympics. And Sir Stanley Rouse was the maitre d'hotel type of thing. He was the overseer of it. So they became really good friends. And one of the best players in that team was an army mate of Matt Busby's called Bob Hardesty, who was one of the great amateur footballers for Bishop Auckland, as it happened. And him and Matt were in the war together. And so when the crash had happened, Jimmy Murphy knew this, and he rang Bob Hardesty. And Bob Hardesty and Bishop Auckland let Bob Hardesty, Derek Lewin, who was the England amateur inside forward, and a young winger called Warren Bradley, who went on to become an England full international. And Bishop Auckland gave United them 3 players. Now, no other club, they signed Stan Crowler from
I was going to say Villa, yeah.
And they signed Ernie Taylor, who was a great inside forward in his day from Blackpool. Yeah. But United had no money, don't forget, because they hadn't insured the lives of those that got killed and couldn't play again. Because why would they in 1958? And, you know, they United were brass linked. They really were. And that gesture by Bishop Auckland, giving 3 players, enabled them towards the 22 that were needed. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Other clubs did offer players, in fairness, but they wanted a bit of transfer fees, and they didn't have the money, really. So I was so proud of this that I became an ambassador for them. And I finished it writing a play, the only play I've ever written, called Bishop United. And it was about Matt and Bob meeting in the war, and Matt coming along to Old Trafford. Sorry, Matt coming along. Let me get this right. Matt and Bob Matt asking Bob to be his captain for the 1948 Olympics, and how that relationship had happened, and then of course the crash and what they achieved for it. So so Matt Busby, but it is a lighter story about Matt. Now I've been told it's by players of United. Now I suspect it might not be true, but it's a bloody good story. And I remember this winter, in 1962-63, Britain had its worst winter ever.
Yeah, it did.
From Boxing Day to about end of February, there was virtually no football. In fact, United's FA Cup third round tie, which should have been on January the 4th, was played on March the 4th on a Monday night. In fact, United won the cup as it happened in that year. Dennis Law's first season. He signed Paddy Crennan. And the story went that that was the invention. This is true, by the way. This part is true. That was the invention of the pools panel.
Right.
In those days, pools were the be and end all. It wasn't your lottery or whatever. It was your pools that the money was. And the pools panel was started because there was no football.
Yeah.
So they had the Pools Coop, and they brought the Pools panel together, and they gave a verdict. And I believe they still sit to this day, by the way,
Right.
in case a match is called off for whatever reason. But that was the invention of the Pools panel. And evidently, the first 5 games on the Pools panel, United were given as a win.
Yeah.
Dennis Law allegedly said to the team, "Hey guys, I'm going to see Matt and ask for a win bonus." Whoa, keep putting that. We're on the corridor. Hey Dennis, how you doing? Hey boss, we've just won 5 games on the Pools panel. Oh Dennis, you get a win bonus. That's a good idea, Dennis. But you were bloody dropped for those games, so you can bugger off. So I'm sure it's not a true story, but it's a bloody good one, and it's been, remarked to me a few times. But Busby, I mean, well, I can't mention it. It's just, can you imagine what it was like to be in his company?
Literally in the company of a legend. And you're right, he never forgot his roots, did he, Busby? Because
No.
he was a miner. I mean, he worked underground, as did
Yeah.
Shankly, as did Steen. That's why I referenced the film, The Three Kings. But that
Yeah, that's
book
brilliant.
about Busby, Paddy
Yeah,
Barclay wrote it, didn't he?
yes, he did. He
Yeah.
did. And I mean, Paddy, I love Paddy. A great journalist. He's retired now, but I still stay in contact with him. Of course, we were talking of heroes then, and I said about Tom Finney, but you know, if I said to you, who's the greatest footballer you've ever seen, who would it be?
That I've actually seen play
Yeah,
football,
yeah,
I would say not live because I missed his performance for Argentina against England in 1980, but
yeah,
Diego Armando Maradona.
yeah. I can understand that, and there'd be lots of Pele lovers and Eusebios and
Tommy Docherty would say Duncan Edwards.
yeah, and Duncan Edwards. And that's one of my books, of course. I did with another chap, Ian McCartney. We wrote the first biography in 1988 of Duncan Edwards,
I've got
which
that.
got reprinted in 1988, I think it was. And but yeah, I mean Duncan. What I would say about Duncan, and of course I did see him play from the age of. Here's one for you. March 1955.
Yep.
I've gone to United. I'm 8 years of age. FA Youth Cup.
He scored 3 goals against Sheffield United.
Well, yeah, but this is Duncan Edwards, March 58,
Yeah.
March 55. Manchester United versus Plymouth Argyle, FA Youth Cup.
Yeah.
11 o'clock kickoff, Old Trafford. Duncan Edwards played centre half.
Yeah.
Wilfred Guinness was in the team, Eddie Coleman was in the team. Bobby Charlton was in the team, Shea Brennan was in the team. And United won 9-0.
Yeah.
That was on March the 11th, something like that, 1955. 3 weeks after that, Duncan Edwards made his full England debut against Scotland at Wembley. And Matt Busby took a lot of stick then because people were saying, "Oh, he shouldn't be playing him because he's in the England team." And Matt, I think club managers today are wrong. If you've got a star,
100%.
and he could play in the FA Youth Cup,
Yeah.
I think he should play. Last year, Greenwood could have played in the FA Youth Cup for United.
Yeah.
But now, I appreciate if United's got a first team game or whatever at the same time. But if they haven't, I think he should be allowed to play.
But they used to in the old days. I've just recently
Yeah.
done an interview with Dennis Mortimer. Dennis was playing for Coventry's first team and playing youth team football. Steve Perryman played in the 1970 Youth Cup final against Dennis, as did Graham Souness. But Graham, I think, was a little bit younger. He wasn't in the first team by then. But there's many a player. Brian Little in 1972, Trevor Francis when Birmingham City played Aston Villa. They were both in the first team, but both playing youth cup games. And you're right, if they can play in the Youth Cup, why not?
Well,
And that was 9-3, wasn't it, by the way, when England played Scotland, his debut?
No, was it? I think it might have been 7-2. I might be wrong. I think
Because
it may be.
Tommy Docherty played in that game, didn't he? Scored a great free kick. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them was there was a 7-2 and a 9-3. I'm sorry to all my Scottish friends out there, but I know we beat them 7. Because I tell you, a Wolves player, Dennis Wilshaw, got 4 goals.
Yeah.
In the game. But my greatest player I've ever seen, And but just quickly go back to Duncan Edwards. So there, he made his debut in '53. He sadly was killed in '58. So he played 5 years. I mean, he was reaching that peak. He'd come third in the Ballon d'Or behind Di Stefano and someone else, and he was 21. He had the world at his feet. But my greatest footballer I've seen and saw his always career was George Best. I got to meet George before he made the first team, because there's a bowling alley behind the cricket ground, Old Trafford. Well, he used to be. He's not there now. But there used to be a bowling alley when ten-pin bowling started, a big fad in Britain in the early '60s, and it was right behind the Old Trafford cricket ground. And on a Tuesday and Thursday, I used to go down with my mates just over the bridge, and George would be there, quiet, black hair, smiling, not boisterous, just with the other teammates, the youth side, Dave Sadler, Fitzpatrick, people like that, and great company. And you always knew, of course, that there might be George couldn't have all the girls that used to go there just because George was there, and there might be someone you could be able to walk home yourself after. But so I knew him, and I saw his debut, which was against West Brom, in September '63, and then he went back out again, and he brought him back on Boxing Day, or just after Boxing Day '63 against Burnley, and he was never out of the team again. But he was magnificent. And then on the after dinner circuit, I also met him and interviewed him for that What a Game book as well.
Yeah.
And he was a bigger thinker about the game than he was given credit for. And I remember pinning him down and asking him, and he said to me, his first 5 years at United, which would be from 17 in 1963 to 21, 22 when he won the European Cup in '68. He said those 5 years, because he won the title twice in that time and won the European Cup, he said those 5 years were the greatest days of my life. They were fantastic. He said, but the next 5 years should have been even better, because I was growing up then.
Yep.
But they weren't. And the reason behind that, and that goes back to Wilf as well, because Wilf took over as manager when Matt finally retired. But Matt was always in the background. And, I'm doing some research about this other book, which we might talk about tonight or another, about the Manchester United book of the 70s.
Do you know what I think we should do?
Yeah.
I think we should reconvene and do another hour on the book of the 70s, because this is going to lead us nicely up to then.
But I'll just tell you one story about that.
Please do.
Wilf became a good friend of mine, Wilf. And Wilf was only 32, when he took over as manager. But when you look at the programme, when Wilf was officially, you and I would think was the manager, do you know where it gives the name of the officials? Your president, your chairman, your manager, your secretary, whatever. And Wilf's name never appeared in the programme in 18 months.
Blimey.
The general manager rather, was Sir Matt Busby.
Yeah.
And then on page 3, not like in the Sun, but the page 3 of every programme used to be the welcome by the team manager or the manager to the visitors and what was going on.
Yeah.
And Matt Busby wrote that in all of the 18 months, that Wilf. So you can see Wilf's hands were tied.
Yep.
And Best got on well with Wilf. But Wilf did say to me, and not in any order, but he wanted Peter Shilton. He wanted Mick Mills when he was at Ipswich. He wanted Colin Nish when he was at Leicester. Colin Todd.
David Nish.
David Nish.
David Nish, yeah.
Colin Todd when he was at Sunderland. Alan Ball when he was at Everton. Alan Clark when he was at Leicester City.
He almost signed for Manchester United.
Yeah. And the other one, Malcolm MacDonald, when he was at Fulham.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because Wilf had been managing the England under 21s, I think, or 23, and he knew all these players.
Yeah.
And Barley lived near me, where I live in Worsley. Barley used to live there when he played at Everton, and even after. But I actually did a dinner with Alan Ball at a big hotel in Nottingham, and it was the last dinner Alan Ball ever did, because on that Thursday night he was driving back to Hampshire because he lived on the south coast. And the following morning, him and Mick Channon were flying over to Spain for a week of golf. And when he came back the following week, he was cleaning some stuff out in his garden. And one of the incinerators, the flames were going up.
Yeah.
And Bowen was panicking, thinking the incinerator and the flames were going to reach his house. And he died of he had a heart attack and died. And I'd done the last dinner with him in the Crown Plaza in Nottingham the week before. But going back to George, you know, I did these dinners with him and everything, and you know, because one of the times he'd had this serious drink problem, and he said he was going to Norway to have something implanted in his stomach, which would keep him off the drink. And when I saw him again, it might have been 18 months after, and he said I was 12 months. He said, and then I was in Los Angeles or somewhere. He said, and I just don't know why I went in a bar and back on it. A great tragedy, but a top bloke, magnificent footballer, and my ultimate hero as a football player.
But Busby, going back to Alan Clark, Busby had identified Alan Clark and he was trying to bring him to Manchester United. In fact, he was very close, and it was only Frank O'Farrell that, as Leicester City manager in them days, that had a word with Alan, and Alan liked Frank O'Farrell, and that's why he went to Leicester, because of Frank.
I bet Frank O'Farrell wished he'd have let him go now when he came to Old Trafford.
But it was so close, and Frank just went out of his way because he'd arranged to meet him, and he'd missed him somehow. I think it was an England youth game or something, or you know, and Frank had they'd made contact with each other, and he'd gone out of his way. He'd seen Alan, and Alan just liked Frank O'Farrell, and he said he was the reason that I signed for Leicester City and not Manchester United. Nothing about, you know, he didn't like Busby, but it just that he liked Frank O'Farrell, and then got transferred to Leeds United.
Yeah, I think the point George was making there was that you didn't need to have signed all them players we've just mentioned there.
No.
And you will know them as well. But I mean, he doesn't take a genius to think. The only one he signed, by the way, Wilf, in the 18 months was Ian York from Arsenal, the centre half, who'd long since had his good days. But you know, you can imagine. I mean, again, you know, there's one point in that 70s where, you know, Dennis, Bobby, and George all disappeared at the same time.
Well, it was that one season, wasn't it? The 73 season, 74.
Yeah. We'll talk about that with the 70s, but whenever you want.
We will do, because Bobby retired. His last game was at Stamford Bridge, 73, wasn't it, against Chelsea? Dennis had got transferred to City. We're going to be talking about that back heel goal, and George went missing, of course, and you know, it's only, I guess, Tommy Docherty's personality, because if you're in Birmingham and you've got them three great players and you get rid of them all at the same season, you'd probably be strung up by a lamppost. But Tommy, out of the ashes of getting relegated, created a fantastic team. And probably what was needed at Manchester United to ultimately follow what the boss, Sir Matt Busby, had achieved.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
You carry on, sir, what you was going to say, Roy?
Yeah, I just got two really weird dinners I did, which I'd like to talk about. But, you know, if you time's up, your time's up.
No, absolutely, you carry on, sir.
Right, well, one was a bizarre one at Rochdale Football Club. On the top of the bill with the UK centrefold. Now, so this is a gentleman's evening.
Yeah.
The UK centre. So I'm hosting the dinner. I'm on the top table. There's 180 blokes out there, very keen to see the UK centrefold. Anyhow, before that, there was one or two other acts. I'm a comedian, and one or two acts, and one of them was a flamethrower. And this bloke had this beautiful woman alongside him, and he goes, he passed the thing to her, and she goes, whoosh, and the flame goes up in the air and bounces back and on it 4 or 5 times, and I'm watching it going up. Anyhow, on about the 5th time, it hit one of the fire alarms. So next minute, all the places, you know. So the steward comes to me and says, "Oh, you're going to have to get everybody out." I said, "Well, the UK centrefolds are behind in. Oh, these lads are all. We know it's not a fire. It's just it that what? No, that you've got." So I had to tell this 180 lot to get out, and they weren't pleased because it was raining. It was raining outside on a Friday night. So they've gone outside. Next minute, 2 fire engines come up to Rochdale. I'm still there, and the firemen come in. Next minute, the UK centrefolds open the curtains in a state of undress. All the firemen are having a good time because they're talking to they knew this. And the crowd outside had to dissipate because they were going to come back. And so that was a different sports dinner. And another one, which was totally different, was with a very famous or infamous lady called Madam Singh.
Yeah.
Who in the end ran some very successful parlours of ill repute around the rich and the famous in London. And there was a film, Julie Walters played her in a film, and I did 2 dinners with her, and one of them, I was the only man in the audience as the host, and there was 250 women in the audience, and I've got to introduce her, and then there's a lady comedian. And Cynthia said to me, "Roy, once you've introduced me, I want you out of the room this time because I'm going to be talking to the girls." That's okay. So I goes out 45 minutes, then come back in. But the comedian insisted I stay in. And of course, I became the butt of all her bloody jokes to you women because you're the only man in the house. But it was a very interesting. It just shows the different dinners and things on the sports thing, and they were great times. And I'd do it again for a friend, but I don't think I'd rush to do them again myself. But if you would let me just finish on the one dinner when I finished up speaking at dinners, because I in the end also spoke at dinners about basically what we spoke about tonight and stories. And just a story on Alan Ball, back to that what a game. And Fred Air and myself had been over to on the Wirral to interview the late great Joe Mercer. What a lovely man he was. And we're coming back and we're in the Mersey Tunnel, and Fred's got a beautiful car, and it broke down in the middle of the Mersey Tunnel. So got out, got the bonnet up. Anyhow, another car comes past us and stops, and out got Alan Ball and his father, Alan Ball Senior. And they said they recognised Fred and said, "Did we want any help?" But we had to turn him down, Paul, because we didn't want to be known as being towed out of the Mersey Tunnel by the balls. It's been a pleasure to speak to you tonight, and I hope it's been all right from your point of view.
Roy, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. We're going to do another one about your new book, The Big Book of Manchester United in the 70s. How can people hook up with you and ultimately buy your material?
Yeah, well, a lot of quite a few of the books are actually on Amazon. You know, so if they put Roy Cavanagh books on Amazon, but a few of them are out of production. But I mean, there's quite a few in there. I've just done the Harold Gardner book with Carl Abbott. United in the 60s. I've just done Johnny Carey. The Day 2 Teams Died. They're all on Amazon. But the one we've been speaking about, Speak for Your Dinner. But I can give you my Twitter thing and things such as that, and Facebook. But my Twitter angle is at Roy MBE. And if people wanted, and I got enough, I'd probably get it reprinted for people. But that's there. But there are books of mine that are on Amazon.
And Facebook, it's just Roy Cavanagh, MBE, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Fantastic. Roy, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. We will speak again, as I said, very shortly to talk about your wonderful Manchester United big book of the 70s. With Carl Abbott, you've done it with one of your pals, haven't you?
Yeah, and David Lane's a cracking guy, the publisher from Legends, who has done some great books on the Villa, for example, and others.
Absolutely, he's done Brentford, of Arsenal, George Armstrong. You know, legends publishing are what
Yeah.
it says on the can. They are
Yeah.
legends, and their
Yeah.
books aren't just books, they're works of art. And I want to
Yeah.
go into a lot of detail and a lot of depth about the big book of Manchester United, the world's greatest club of the
How will we be
70s.
able to get? Can we get two or three of us together at one junction? Is that? I suppose that'll be okay from your point of view, or is that difficult on the phones?
I
Or which?
struggle on Zoom,
Yeah.
if I'm absolutely honest,
Yeah.
but we
Well,
can we can
we
try
could
and do something.
we could set it up if you wanted on Zoom to you. We could set it up and you could join us. That's up to you.
Well, the last time I went on Zoom, it was a speed awareness course, and they had to mute me because there was something wrong with my computer.
All
So we
right.
might have to do it by telephone in old
Yeah, no,
money.
there's no problem. No problem. Yeah. To suit you, you're in charge.
Okay then, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure, and
Yeah.
thank you for listening, everybody. We will reconvene very
Bye,
shortly.
everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Cheers,
Bye.
pal. Bye bye
Bye.
now. Bye bye.